Thank you for listening to the Matt's Movie Reviews podcast, available on Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, and Stitcher. Also, please follow Matt's Movie Reviews on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, Reddit, Instagram, and MeWe. And of course, be sure to visit mattsmoviereviews.net for the latest reviews, top 10 lists, and more. Now, on to the show.
This is where I would bury Stalin and murder her, if I did it. Now all I have to do is roll her into the grave, cover it up, and make sure I take everything with me.
Yeah, I sort of wish there was that strong female lead.
Someone likable.
Yeah.
I just can't sit back and wait for permission from some guy to make a movie. You know, nobody wants you to make a movie as much as you want to make one yourself. Just make it happen. I would walk people through how I would commit the perfect murder.
You my scary girl?
I'm scouting locations for the next scene of the film. Ground floor apartment, perfect. I'll come back later when it's time to complete the next step, breaking and entering when the occupant is home. Lean in, baby.
Murder is probably not realistically depicted on television, so I would do some Googling first.
All the best serial killers are unpredictable. They look at the criminal profile they're forming, and they strike outside of it. I could unwittingly reveal too much about myself psychologically by my choice of targets. It's pretty clever, right?
Hello and welcome to the Matt's Movie Reviews podcast. I am your host, Matthew Pejkovic, and this is episode number 347. Releasing in Australian cinemas on the 20th of May is I Blame Society, a mockumentary that follows indie filmmaker Gillian as she chronicles her latest project, to commit the perfect murder. Soon, this project turns into a lifestyle as the bodies pile and the camera continues to roll. A highly entertaining satire that delves into violence, sex, and filmmaking in a post-Me Too world. I Blame Society also marks the feature film debut of Gillian Wallace Horvat, who also stars and co-wrote the film, and I'm happy to say joins me now on the Matt's Movie Reviews podcast. Gillian, I thank you so very much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me here, Matt. I'm really excited to talk to you.
So, having done my research for the film, it's really interesting how this kind of project came about. And it started with a real life conversation. You were hanging out with some friends and they said to you that you would be a good murderer or a perfect murderer. And I imagine a comment like that might have come out of nowhere. Who knows what the situation was like? What was your reaction to hearing that? And when did that kind of comment really kind of fester and germinate in your mind that, hey, this could be something for a potential movie?
Well, I'm just always flattered when somebody says something nice to me. So if they say you'd be good at something, it doesn't really matter what it is. I'm flattered and I appreciate the intent behind the comment. So I was tickled when they told me, and immediately my mind started going towards, what are the qualities that make a good murderer, and realizing that you have to be able to envision a project from the beginning and see it through and be self-motivated and be impervious to doubt and really able to keep going, in order to not stumble on any immoral internal turmoil that might lead you to getting caught, the ability to improvise around obstacles, the ability to be unique and really come up with a signature. These are qualities that make a good murderer, but they also make a good filmmaker.
It's interesting that at first you made a short film. Is that correct? It was called I Murderer, and you kind of went around, you talked to different people in your life, your mum, your grandmother, your ex-boyfriend, and you posed that question to them, would I make a great murderer? Is that footage from that short film in the film that we see now in I Blame Society?
Yeah. So the film of I Blame Society was built around the footage from the documentary I Murderer. And so that's the footage that you see that they're watching on the laptop, Gillian and her boyfriend, Keith.
Right.
So, yeah.
And it's really interesting that also, when you watch serial killer movies, and in many ways, I Blame Society is that the serial killer always has kind of like a calling card. Could it be methods of how they dispatch their victims, etc.? The calling card for your character of Gillian is that it's the selfie stick and the GoPro camera. And I'd be very interested to see actually whether this Halloween, whether that kind of makes an appearance, actually, the whole kind of get up you have in the movie, because it'll be a great Halloween costume, I think. When you are wearing the GoPro camera, when you are holding the selfie stick, is that footage in the movie as well? Are you pretending to film at the time? Are you actually filming and using that footage in the film?
It is really filming, although a lot of that footage is difficult to use because of the camera movement. If you're, I'm more focused on performing and in the role and not really focused on getting a good shot. So it's pretty shaky. And our cinematographer warned us really on that footage wouldn't really be usable because were it projected on a large screen, it would make anybody really nauseous. It kind of would have like this, dogma effect of like, I remember when I took my mom to see Dancer in the Dark in the theater, she almost puked because she just wasn't used to the shaky camera. So we repeat all those shots with reverses with our DP operating the camera. So sometimes they would grab a cool shot and we would use it. So there is some stuff there. So I'm an uncredited operator on the film, I guess.
You also star in the film, as I said before. Was it always the intention for you to be the main actor in the movie?
Well, if we were going to use that footage from the documentary, that had to happen. But I wasn't excited about it because I'm not an actor. And so I didn't, that sounded like doing way too much on a first film, directing a low budget horror movie in 12 and a half days and acting in nearly every shot. It seemed like a recipe for, mental breakdown. But if I thought it would be, I thought that if it turned out well, then it would be much more compelling because then, the inclusion of my biography, the extra textuality there would make the blurring between documentary and fiction more suspenseful and shocking and fun. But yeah, in my ideal world, Lily Collins would have played me, and that's about that.
If there was a different actress to play you, would the name of the character still be Gillian? And would they kind of bring on kind of like the mannerisms that you have in the film as well? Is that the kind of like what you're looking for that character, the really kind of deadpan delivery that you have in the movie?
Well, I don't think I'm not that deadpan in real life. That was definitely a bit of a choice, and so, to have somebody who has, a bit, I think, and it's also the presence of the camera. I think, that's something that we're really focused on is that element of performativity, knowing that you're being recorded and modifying yourself. And so I think that when people are on camera, they are a little bit more deadpan. That's something that, definitely, other mockumentaries have played with the fact that, we all feel a little bit scrutinized when we're on camera, and we certainly withhold. So it would be different. I do think that were a different actor to play me, we still would have kept the name for sure. Catherine Breillat does something really similar in her film Abuse of Weakness, which is about something that happened to her where she had a stroke and was taken advantage of by a con artist. And so she very bravely and vulnerably put the story out there and made a totally awesome film about it. And she had Isabelle Huppert play her. And I believe that the character is called Catherine. So that would have been great too. I would have loved Isabelle Huppert as well. She would have been a great me.
For all of the grisly nature that the film does delve into, I found it incredibly funny at times as well. I think the two times where I laughed out loud the most, maybe I shouldn't have, but I'm not sure. But the first one was when you, one of your would-be victims is a straight edge man, and he refuses a drink, and your way of getting your victims to pass out and such as you'll spike their alcoholic drinks. He refuses, so you bang him over the head with a bottle. For some reason, that made me laugh. I don't know why. I love physical comedy that kind of went into that realm. The other one was these great one-liners you have in the films, and the one that I like the best is you're in the home, you're broken into the home of a would-be victim, you're setting up hidden cameras, you look at the camera and you say to it, I'm not being creepy, it's just a second angle for coverage, which is a great line delivered so beautifully well. Lines it was, because it made me laugh. It's just the way that it was presented and the way you did it was just fantastic. Lines like that in the film, are they scripted? Do you leave things open to improvisation on the days, or is it because you have such a short shoot, 12 days, independent film, is it really kind of strict what's on the page and on the page only?
We had the opportunity to do some improvisation in the first week because the film is kind of has some two different visual styles. So the first, at the beginning of the film, it's more naturalistic as the character is, filming herself and she's learning how to use the camera. And then there's a turning point in the film and it starts to look much more cinematic. And that represents kind of the psychotic break of that character, as well as her making a leap forward in, her competence with the camera and lighting and style choices. And so when after that psychotic break, after the death of her friend Chase, we did a lot less improvising because camera setups were much more complicated and there was more lighting. But before that, it was relatively simple because we were really trying to not cheat with the found footage rules, which means, no unmotivated camera angles and no unmotivated camera movement. So the shots are really locked down. And that means that, we can actually run the scene many times if we want to, because we just have the time. We're not trying to cut and get closer in or do whatever. It's kind of like rehearsing a play. So we would, do the scene as written a bunch of times. And then if there was something that was feeling stiff or I just was not, feeling right about it, we would, try some improvs also because, I was working with are very funny and talented and, maybe they could think of a better line than I wrote. So there's the first scene has a fair amount of improvisation at the end. Like I was not supposed to cry at the end of that take. That was something really organic that happened. And the first scene with the producers, that part where I'm filming them under the table, that's there's a lot of improvisation there, like them just insulting me. The scene of me and Keith watching on the laptop where we're just talking about the footage, that's all improvised. So there was room at the beginning, but then as things went on and, the 12 and a half days elapsed, the heat was on for sure.
You mentioned just then scenes with producers. So throughout the film, your character Gillian is trying to get her filmmaking, career up and running, taking different meetings, etc. Especially with two producers. And throughout the kind of like these meetings, they give a lot of lip service. They talk about things like they want to give opportunities and such, but there's barriers that are there. There's almost kind of like a condescending nature that the character Gillian is there more as a commodity, like to tick a box that they're talking to a female filmmaker, as in they actually want to work with a female filmmaker and listen to her ideas and work together. When you did Kiss Finger Bang back in 2015, you win awards for that, especially at the South by Southwest Film Festival. Post that, I'm sure you would have had a lot of offers, a lot of meetings and such. The meetings that we see in this film, I Blame Society, are they based on the things that happened to you?
No, I didn't have any meetings or anything.
Oh, okay.
After I won that, yeah.
Interesting.
Crickets.
Yeah, because I'm sorry for putting that the observation out there, because just talking to other filmmakers, I must put in the caveat here, male filmmakers, usually the thing is they win the award for the short film, they get meetings after that, etc. But in this case, it didn't happen for you.
Oh yeah, and I totally understand, and you weren't projecting anything. I think that with male filmmakers, I have noticed that they make a short film, and it's at it could even be at a relatively minor regional festival or whatever. And, people are, like, what are you doing next? And, getting a lot of meetings. And yeah, I did expect there to be a bit more, a bit more interest after Kiss Kiss Finger Bang, especially since it had A-list actors in it and things like that. But I think that, it's possible that it is, that the barriers to entry for a female filmmaker are just a lot bigger. It could also have been, the subject matter. It's a really confusing tone for some people. And, maybe even if a guy had made a film with a tone like that, I don't know how they would do as well. I mean, dark comedy is, it's a really hard space. And, it's a lot of obstacles to overcome. More earnest films that are easier to market, I think are more palatable. But I do think that, if it had been a guy who had made a short that had won the Midnight Short section at South by Southwest, and it starred Anton Yelchin, like, I do think things would have been a little different.
Yes. In watching your film, there's always that line that is there with filmmakers that sometimes they'll do anything they can to get their reactions in the film or to get their shot. And throughout film history, we've had examples of this. Like, for example, lately I've been watching a deep dive into like the films of William Friedkin, and just reading the stuff about him, the stuff that he used to do behind the scenes to try to get reactions from his actors. In one case, he slapped an actor in the face. In another movie, he'd fired a gun off camera so he can get a reaction. And then you hear stories about Hitchcock's in the stuff he did in The Birds and other things as well. When it came to your story in this film about a filmmaker who does anything she can to get her shot, did you look back at those kind of real life occurrences in certain ways where they kind of like not so much an inspiration, but did you look at that and said, hey, some people have done some crazy things to try to get, things on film, and while we're taking a much bigger approach in our film, we're not too far off the mark here?
I mean, I personally think that shooting a gun or slapping an actor to get the performance or the line reading that you want seems like a lot of work. I would just tell them what I thought their character was thinking and feeling, and they would do exactly what I needed. So that's my style. It works for me.
There's a really cool film in a line in the movie as well where the actor who plays your boyfriend, Keith Paulson, he talks about how he himself in the film is an editor. You in the film are a filmmaker. Talks about that sometimes, maybe we're all delusional in trying to get these things up and running like our movies and such. I think that is a thing with a lot of creatives. There's that kind of thing within us that, no matter how much hard work we put into this stuff, someone's going to watch it. It may not be the case. There's a lot of people out there that do make films, that do websites, do podcasts, etc. No one's listening and such, but they go ahead with it anyway. Do you think there's a certain aspect about that, in the lives of creative people, artistic people, that you have to be just a little deluded to do the things that you have to do?
Hell yes, absolutely. I think that, at the beginning for, 100% and probably well into the entirety of their career, it's really hard to get support and the positive feedback and the validation that you need to keep going. And so, yes, maybe you need to delude yourself that, your work is eagerly anticipated by the potential viewer, and that if you just did it, somebody would love it, and that you really have something special and unique to say. And the truth is that some of the times you're right and some of the times you're wrong, but you may only be wrong that time, and you need to keep trying, and you don't get any better. And, if you don't keep working at it. So it's really hard, and it is psychologically torturous. But yeah, so I totally agree.
Well, I got to say that all the effort put into I Blame Society is totally worth it. It's a fantastic film. And for everyone out there listening, releases in Australia, 20th of May. I know in the States, Gillian, that's available now also on digital through places like Amazon.
Yeah, it's available in the States right now, and it's available in the UK. So, yeah, check it out.
I really highly recommend all my listeners in the UK and the US and Australia when it comes out May 20. I Blame Society. Watch this film. It's one of my favorite films of the year, hands down.
Thank you so much, Matt.
Well, thank you very much for making a great film and for your time today, Gillian. I do appreciate it. And hopefully in the future, when more films are made, we talk again.
Thank you. I'd love that.